Absolutely extraordinary. 6255 1206. Time to catch up with One Nation leader, Senator Pauline Hanson. Pauline, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen.
I don't know that this is the Australia I remember.
Well, it's definitely not the Australia I grew up in, and it's disheartening, isn't it? It's I don't know what to say about it. It's what is wrong with people these days. You know, so many people with mental illness, there are problems with using, it's an excuse for committing a crime. Is it because of the video games that they watch, the movies that they watch? Is it because there's not enough discipline that's happening in the classrooms? Or do we just put up all these kids in cotton wool and let them do whatever they want to do? I don't know. Is it a combination? Is it dysfunctional families? What is it?
Well, I think it's probably a combination of all of those things, but also a lack of resources for mental health resources. We don't fund these things properly. We don't address these things. I mean, once upon a time we used to treat mental illness. Now we seem to think it's discriminatory if we treat somebody that is mentally ill. And we see these incidents like we saw in Bondi and then last night in a church while a bloke's preaching.
Well, what happened years ago when I was first entering politics, and there was the move to actually close down these institutions that, held people with mental illness. Anyway, they closed them down and said, just put them out in the communities, live a decent life and just keep an eye on them. Well, that really hasn't worked, has it?
No.
For a lot of these people, because they need to be kept an eye on, they need to take the medication, and we've seen this time and time again. We need to revisit that, Stephen. These are facts of life, and this needs to happen. Also, what the federal government did, do you know that they cut down the number of services for people to go and see a psychologist?
Yeah, well, they cut it from 20 to 10. That's right, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So they cut that back. So they're not putting the money into it as well. So, and then, at school, the grandparents pulled me up one day years ago and they said, do you know that they're forcing our grandchild to have Ritalin? And they said against their will. So in the classrooms, if kids are actually playing up, they're actually forcing these kids to have this medication. And that was years ago. Whether it stopped or not, I don't know. But I'm hearing too much of parents putting the kids on this Ritalin because they're deemed to have ADHD. I think it's parental problems as far as I'm concerned. Kids not being able to do what they're told to do, and the classrooms are disrupted. The teachers have no control of the classrooms, and I've heard that from the teachers. They're not trained to deal with certain kids in the classroom, disrupt the classroom. These kids are getting medication or put on medication by their parents, and I know one parent who's actually put the kid on medication, ended up out of the mother's care and in the father's care, has been off it now for the last 2 years and is powering ahead. Nothing wrong with the kid at all.
Yeah.
So, Stephen, there's things that needs to be discussed and debated. We can't just close our eyes to this. You've got innocent people. Oh, my God, I'm devastated. I really am. And the baby, thank God the baby lived, but the poor mother, it's devastating.
Yeah, it really is. And when 6 innocent people have lost their lives doing something that should be, and I don't know if you've read Joel Fitzgibbon's piece in The Australian, but, it should have been the most risk-free activity in life, just going to the shops. And
our lives changed.
Yeah,
our life in Australia has changed. And also with the priest. And all I heard last night before I went to bed was the fact that the priest was stabbed with a pen. I don't know his situation. I don't know the other one's situation. So I don't know what happened there. But I tell you what, we as a society have to say enough is enough. And it's governments have taken control out of our hands. And the little things that they've done with legislation, nanny states, regulations and everything else that's happened here. Well, about time the people started saying, we've had enough. This is not the society we want to grow up in, or we want our children to grow up in. See, the young ones have no idea of what it was like. They've got nothing to relate it back to.
Yeah.
The older generation do. So it's the older generation I'm talking to. You actually need to take a stance on this because it's your future of your children and grandchildren.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. Now, Pauline, I just want to quickly touch on the Prime Minister is talking up a big game about a future made in Australia by throwing taxpayers' money picking winners when the best thing they could do is try and bring down the cost of electricity. You've again advocated for a nuclear future for Australia. Look, anybody with common sense seems to think this is a good idea, but nobody in government does.
They don't, because they've headed down this path. Their policies have been set, the same as the Greens and the Labor, and actually a coalition to a degree, have set their policies on renewables. It doesn't work around the world. And we are only emitting 0.0004% of 3% of emissions. That's all we're putting out, and we're destroying our economy for it. Keep the coal-fired power stations for the time. You can put in new power stations that are 90% emissions-free. What's wrong with that? All this scam, all the fear-mongering, everything that's going on, and our way of life has been destroyed, jobs. Industries manufacturing will not power ahead under the Labor government. They are actually leaving the country. We're going to lose jobs and the ability to actually provide for ourselves, because we're going to rely more on India and China for what we need. We're not going to manufacture it here. We're going to be held to ransom in the future, and it's going to be a devastation for our country. We'll end up a third world country at the rate we're going.
Pauline, good to talk to you. We'll catch up next week.
Thanks, Stephen. Bye.
Senator Pauline Hanson, One Nation leader.